Hi, I'm Dave Caissy, founder of the Innovation Leaders Club. In this video, we'll be looking at how can we implement innovation program. But if you would look at a previous video that I did, I cover what is innovation program and how to make them happen and why should we have innovation program. But more precisely in this video, we'll be looking at when it comes to extend the innovation scope to other value offering. So instead of only offering product performance, let's say a new product, how can we extend the innovation to other type of value offering? So we're going to use the 10 types of innovation, which is a very intuitive framework coming from Doblin. And so let's look at the innovation wheel. So we have innovation types into the configuration. We have the profit model, we have the network, we have the structure and the process. So no worry, I'll come back to those later in the video. Then we have in the offering, we have product performance and also product system. And we have in the experience, we have the service, we have the channel, the brand, and ultimately the customer engagement. So let's look at what we have right now in the industry. But before we get into that, there's something very interesting. There's an organization that, and if you look on more flat, which makes easier to look at, on the left hand side, it's very internal, while when we get into the experience, it's very external, or let's call it on stage versus backstage. Most of the organization are really focusing into simple innovation. So they innovate in one type, or they could even go to two types, which would be known also being as a simple innovation. And so why do we call them simple? Because it's not simple to innovate in product performance, but I would say it's simple or simpler to copy. If we look at the some of the benchmark, most of the organization, and those data comes from Doblin, most of innovators, they innovate in 1.8 innovation or type of innovation. So if you're to copy, you have to copy less than two types, which makes it much more easier to copy. We captured data it was back in 2023, with our club members, and we came up with something very similar. Most of the innovators were innovating into the product performance, and less of them were innovating in multiple product types to make it a more sophisticated innovation. But if you look at organization, and again, coming from Doblin, organization that are very high performer innovators, they innovate on average on 3.6. So if you recall the 1.8 we had earlier, now we have 3.6. So we kind of double the types of innovation that we have on the top innovators. And so that really makes a big difference. Organizations that are successful innovation, that those are less successful. So let's deep dive into the different type of innovation that are to be combined. But why do we bring this into the innovation program? And one thing why we bring this, it is because it can be interesting to say, okay, I'm going to have 4 types of innovation in the upcoming innovation, but it will not, or very, very unlikely, happen in one project. It will take multiple projects. Let's say the first project, you will have product performance and maybe a service to it. So you will have 2 types, which is still called a simple innovation. But in a second project, you will add a 3rd type, or in a 4th project or a 3rd project, you will have had a 4th type. You see what I mean? It will take multiple projects ultimately to add those different types of innovation. So if you try to make sophisticated innovation in one project, you're very unlikely to succeed. So packaging or planning the innovation, more sophisticated innovation through innovation program is the way to succeed. So let's look at the different types, and so we can have a better understanding what they are. So first one is we're really looking at the profit model. So in the profit model here, we have an example with Gillette, with the razor and blade. We have Tremblant, which is located in North America. It's a ski resort that they have used kind of crowdfundings because the public were acquiring apartments and they were letting Tremblant, which is a part of IntraWest, to rent the apartment to people that really wanted to attend or use the ski resort. And ultimately, they were able to found this old village through crowdfunding. And Keurig, which is kind of the Nespresso in North America, which is kind of like Gillette. So it's using a consumable product. So they sell the machine to make coffee to a reasonable price. Maybe they don't have much margin to it, but they make margin when they sell the coffee pods. And so those are business model. Let's look at some others. We have Pfizer and BioNTech. If you recall, in the pandemic for COVID-19, we had Pfizer, which is they were able to manufacture in the pharmaceutical industry mostly all over the world, and they have a distribution channel. While BioNTech was a German pharmaceutical, was a mid-sized organization, but it didn't have the reach of Pfizer. So working together, so it was a network innovation. So they work as a network to make it happen, and it became very, very successful. Toshiba with UPS. So Toshiba, it's a very well-known brand, but so they made a partnership with UPS. So they don't manufacture, neither store, neither distribute. So they manage design, they manage R&D, they manage finance, but everything that has to do with the logistic, including the manufacturing, it's all and all by UPS. So using the network to make it happen. So let's look at the some innovation that we could have in the structure. Whole Food, which is well established in US. So basically what they do, it's a large organization, but they made all the different markets to be almost not being independent, but managed with a lot of initiative at local level. When we look at the Southwest, so when they first started, they only had 737 airplanes. Because they all had the same airplanes, all the crews, including people flying and people in the cabin, so the flight attendants, they were all similar crews. So it was really easy to manage the different crews and ensure that the airplane was flying, because you make money when you fly. So when the plane is on the ground waiting for a new crew, you're not making money. So they ended up being one of the most productive, having their airplanes in the air more than anyone else in the industry. And that was innovation in the structure by having exactly the same team working in the same airplane. Now they have grown up a bit, but this is how they made it very successful. So they were with those 737 all only making internal flight within USA, and they didn't have external or international flight before a long time. So they were able to grow that way. So let's look at process. So Zara, for instance, where they're from Spain, and there are multiple countries, but basically everything is managed through Spain. So if you have a store in New York City, but you will get inventory, and that inventory is being selected by someone in Spain who's using the data that what was sold before. So they know what people are buying in this store. So if you have someone in New York City, let's say if you have a store in Manhattan, they receive different product than people in Brooklyn. So in Brooklyn, there's much more people that are living there, while in Manhattan, there's a lot of tourists. So international tourists. And so knowing that through the data, they would send different products. And most of the times there's new order coming every 3 weeks. And through those orders could be very different from one time to another. So they don't have like a seasonal collection so if you see something at Zara, if you don't buy it now, you may not ever see it, because it may not come back in the next order. Toyota are well known for the improvement for their lean manufacturing, IKEA, multiple things that they do. But one thing that I really impressed about IKEA, it's the brand of the different products. They use Swedish names so they can have the same name all over the world. And if you look at the instruction booklet, it's the same because it's multiple languages. So it can be built anywhere in the world and shipped in any store in the world. So it's amazing. So it really eases the logistic. Let's keep going with product performance. But this is what most of the Innovation Leaders Club members are doing. So this one is obviously the most popular. We saw it in the data that we had initially. And I'm not saying that you should not do that, but you should combine product performance with something else. An example where you could take a product to another level is if you think system. And that's how Microsoft were really, really successful in introducing Office. For those that are old enough and they recall WordPerfect, there was a word processor, there was Lotus Note. So there was different independent work software for the office management, but Microsoft came up with a product called Office, and they combined the different product in one system. And even though the first word processor it was called Word. Now for us it's obvious, but it was new at that time. It was not as performant as WordPerfect, but because it was linked to Excel, so you could take a table that there was not even like very easy drag and drop at that time, but you could copy and paste, and they were designed to work together. So, and they were sold as a package, and for the IT team it was easier because it was also linked to the Windows. So all that system made it easier, and this is how they were able to conquer the market. So let's keep going and get into the experience. So when we get into the experience, there's Apple. Walk through an Apple store and you will see that it's very different the way it will be served. Cisco, for instance, is a large distributor, like a food distributor in North America, and they distribute in a lot of restaurants, for instance. So one thing they do with restaurants, and keep in mind that service, it is service that you offer on the top of your service. Okay, so because Cisco is a distributor, so they are in the service industry, they distribute. But but what is the service that they offer on the top of distribution? And that's what we're talking here about service. And they do menu optimization. So they will go into a restaurant, take the menu, and optimize the menu so the restaurant could make more money. For instance, they will be looking at products that require a lot of preparation, and they will say, oh, you should remove that of your menu. There's things that what is the most popular in your menu? If the margin are not the highest, maybe you should not have it in the picture. Anyway, it's really popular, so people will keep asking for them. But have picture of your higher margin and easy to prepare product. And also look at some ingredients. Maybe there is some ingredients that are less expensive. They are as healthy as the other one, and would do a similar with similar function and same taste and cost less. Ultimately, to ensure that the restaurant is making more profit, and there is a logic to that. If their clients make more profits and they stay in business, it's good for them. And Videotron, which is in communication service organization in Canada, that's how they got into the market of cell phone, for instance, providing better service than the competitors that were well established. Let's look into the channel. We have Amazon for sure, and Nespresso. Let's get into Nespresso. When they first started, Nespresso was from Nestle. So Nestle, you would buy them into a grocery store. But Nespresso, what they did, they came up with a very different channel approach. You would either buy directly into their store, or you would buy it via online website, and it was direct distribution. So now they are more open, but for the multiple years, initially that they started, they were able to grow and be very successful that way. So let's look at two brands innovation. Virgin, they started into the music industry and they were able, then they moved into communication, aerospace, even space. And so using a brand which is strong and then move it with that brand along. And Intel, I very like that one. So look at your computer. If it's not a Mac, there's a lot of chance that it's written Intel inside. So, and we don't know what is into the computer, but having that sticker, it gives confidence to people, especially for the IT people, that you have an Intel processor. Same thing 3M did with Tinsolate inside, or let's say Gore-Tex. You will pay a very expensive rain gear with Gore-Tex, and you will never see the Gore-Tex, but because there's that tag, you will be willing to pay more. And so last but not the least is customer engagement. So there's Garaga, which is a garage door manufacturer. And what is really interesting about Garaga, which is a club member, by the way, they are promoting the installation. So they have Garaga expert, and ultimately people that install the garage door, most of the time they are smaller organization, but because Garaga's brand is strong, they have Garaga on their truck, and they even have a ball cap Garaga, and so they use the brand of Garaga to their advantage, and so they're really engaged with Garaga because they're not going to look for other suppliers, because they use the brand of their suppliers for their own business. BRP, which has a brand, let's say Ski-Doo, Sea-Doo, Can-Am with the Spider, they were also able to get the customer engagement. People are paying to buy product where their names on it. So when people are willing to pay for your brand, they're willing to pay for it means that you have strong customer engagement. So again, it's important to look at how can we extend the innovation scope in order to protect ourselves from the competition. And going through just one project, it makes it very too difficult. This is why it's very interesting to look at the program and using the program to think multiples year ahead and see how can we, let's say first year, introduce one or two types of innovation, and over the years extending the innovation scope and make the innovation to be more sophisticated. So I hope you like this video, and I hope you have a nice day. Cheers.
If you haven't already done so, you can get your hands on our popular 60-page visual guidebook for free. Click the link in the description below. Don't hesitate to watch the next video to learn even more about innovation management practices.